All right, guys, so let me walk you through this here. This is an article in Mother Jones which lays out Trump's plan in 2024 to steal the election. Now, we've previously discussed there was an article in Rolling Stone that went into detail about the same thing. But the difference is this time around, Trump and his allies and the Republicans are trying to do most of the work to get the election to go their way up front. So back in 2020, it was all an afterthought, right? So they lost the election, and then they were scrambling and trying to find a way to prevent certification of the election. Obviously, they had over 60 lawsuits and lost nearly every one of them. They didn't even have standing. You had Republican judges and even MAGA judges that threw out the cases. And you also had the fake elector slates. You had January 6th. And everything in that instance was after the fact, that they had to try to navigate it and come up with a Weasley way to steal the election, right? But this time, it would be much harder to do it on the back end. For one thing, Trump is not president, right? He doesn't have his hand directly on the levers of power like he did in 2020. That's a big strike against him in being able to pull it off. There was also a new law that passed, which makes it harder for the vice president to do what Trump was asking Mike Pence to do. Now, Pence didn't do it, but the idea of just like rejecting certification, the new law makes it very clear that the vice president doesn't have the authority to say, no, we're going to throw it out. Now, it's not like Pence had that ability anyway, but it became extra crystal clear with this new law that that's not the case. Okay, so how are they going to go about it this time? Well, this time, again, they have to do all of their Weasley tricks on the front end. So in Mother Jones here, the title is, Trump has a plan to win without the votes, and the fight is on to stop him. As the 2024 election enters its last weeks, a years-long effort to protect it will be tested. So I want to read you, we're not going to go through the whole article here, but I'll give you some of the important parts. So this one right here, the lawsuits have been flooding in for months from the Republican National Committee, now part of the family firm under the co-chairmanship of Trump's daughter-in-law and allied groups. The list includes lawsuits to purge voting rolls, disqualify significant numbers of absentee and mail ballots, and to make it easier for local officials to refuse to certify elections. So they're going with the Ken Paxton strategy. Ken Paxton in 2020 in Texas, very famously, he waged a whole bunch of lawsuits, won a bunch of those lawsuits in the right-wing Texas courts, got like 700,000 mail-in ballots tossed, and Ken Paxton went on Steve Bannon's show and bragged that if it wasn't for him, Trump probably would have lost Texas. The only reason Trump won is because he was able to get those 700,000 mail-in votes tossed. Okay? So this is the exact same thing we're talking about here. Purge the voting rolls. So in other words, what you do is, hey, this guy, Bob Smith, died. Toss Bob Smith out. Oh, would you look at that? There's 7 different Bob Smiths. Who cares? Toss them all out. Republicans know when turnout is low, they win. When turnout is high, Democrats win. So they try, by any means necessary, getting that turnout to be as low as possible. Disqualifying a significant number of absentee and mail-in ballots. They know the mail-in ballots are overwhelmingly Democratic, so do whatever you can to throw out a bunch of absentee and mail-in ballots. Make it easier for local officials to refuse to certify the election. See, now it's illegal for, like, the vice president. There's not a legal gray area anymore. The vice president can't just not certify the election. So, all right, let's outsource that at the local level so you nip it in the bud up front when the vote numbers are in, and if a Democrat wins this county, let's just have a MAGA Republican at the county level say, no, we're not going to do that. We are not going to do that. We're going to go in the other direction. All right, here they say, one prong of that strategy has been to ramp up pressure on states and counties to purge their voter rolls, seeking to limit who can vote by removing people more likely to support Democrats. In 2018, the Supreme Court made such purges easier. According to a tally from Bloomberg, GOP attempts to strike voters make up nearly a third of 165 lawsuits already filed to influence the 2020 election. There's already 165 lawsuits about the 2024 election. And again, nearly a third of them are from Republicans trying to purge voter rolls. We also saw a similar thing, again, in Texas. They did like a raid of a Democratic group that registers Latino voters. I mean, stop and think about that. They're not doing anything illegal. in any way, shape, or form, but they treated them like criminals. They treated them like criminals. So in another portion here, it's not on screen for you at the moment, but in another portion here, they go on to say, in Pennsylvania, courts are deciding whether to cancel mail ballots from eligible voters with small errors, like missing a handwritten date. Other lawsuits in the state will decide whether counties must alert people if their mail-in votes have been disqualified and whether those voters can cast provisional ballots. Certification fights will come earlier in the process at the county and state level. Quote, we're going to see a lot more certification fights, predicts Albert, not just due to officials refusing to certify, but also from candidates objecting to certification even when they have clearly lost. Quote, the reality of certification is going to be slow and litigious. Now, the other thing they point out in this article is that they're kind of like judge shopping. The right is kind of judge shopping. So they're trying to get into courts that they know are more favorable to right-wing bullshit. So you file lawsuits in certain places and hope it works its way up a certain way. And again, that's a way to try to rig it, where you know you have sympathetic judges in this particular district, so wage a lawsuit in this particular district and try to get a favorable outcome. So they also say Georgia's state election board, dominated by Trump allies, has encouraged county officials to question results. This week, a state judge ruled that certification at the county and state level is mandatory under Georgia law. So in that instance, a court saved us. However, throughout the country, it's likely that court action will still be needed to force local officials to comply with laws and precedent requiring them to certify results. In other words, rogue local MAGA election officials are the biggest concern here. And you're almost certainly going to need the courts to get involved to mandate, no, that needs to be certified because you guys are raising a big stink over absolutely nothing. So I got a little more here for you. Listen to this quote. They file these lawsuits now. They get a lot of attention about whatever misinformation they're spreading about the election system. And when their cases get dismissed, they point at the courts. They point at the state election officials and say, look, we told them about these problems. They didn't fix it. The election is rigged. You can't trust it. So this is part of their, sow seeds of doubt strategy. That's what we're looking at here, right? And a lot of this, I mean, we covered this the other day on the show. You had Marjorie Taylor Greene already spreading conspiracy theories about how somebody voted for Trump and me and it flipped the votes to the Democrats. And this is recycling the same bullshit about the Dominion voting machines in 2020. It was totally debunked then, is totally debunked now, but they're spreading it. You also have Polymarket, the crypto betting platform is, Trump's a favorite on there, and it's all because a few assholes are spending a lot of money betting on Trump. It makes it look like, oh, he's a favorite. You have these Republican pollsters flooding the zone with pro-Trump polls, which make it look like he's the favorite. So do you see the total picture here? So they create this impression he's winning. He's winning. He's up. Look, it's already done. He's the favorite. This thing is, wrap it up, right? And then if/when he loses, they get to turn around and say, whoa, something's off here. Something's off here. The Red Mirage scenario, right? That's going to happen again, potentially, where it looks like Trump is winning, and then in the middle of the night, the mail-in votes are counted, boom, Kamala takes the lead or whatever. Again, this is all, all of the ingredients are there for hell on earth after the election, where and Trump is basically broadcasting he's going to contest it if he loses, right? And now you know the specifics of what their plan is this time around. It's lawsuits up front, and it's more at the state and local level, trying to block certification if he loses there. So get ready, guys. As I pointed out, that Rolling Stone article pointed this out. There's 70 different MAGA election deniers who are in swing state positions to certify the election. That's a nightmare. And I genuinely don't know how a democracy continues when half the people in the democracy are like, we don't believe in or care if it's a democracy, and we will cheat and we will steal it come hell or high water because all we care about is our guy getting in power. I don't know how that democracy can continue for an extended period of time. It's like you're hoping that the courts hold up and they do their job properly and the institutions hold, but they've been chipping away at these institutions now for a long time, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. But now I will say this. Thankfully, you do have the cavalry on the other side is showing up. So you have all these groups that are getting involved and basically countersuing the Republicans who are trying to steal the election and trying to cheat. And so As long as they keep at it, and as long as the judges keep some degree of objectivity and neutrality, we should be all right, but we shouldn't have to go through this much of a mess just to get the correct results of an election, no matter what it is. So there you have it, but that's their plan for 2024, and it's already in motion. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.